It's the longest continuous study of any animal species by a human ever, and it will never be broken.
Really?
And so that film was called The Last Primate, and Mel Gibson narrated that for us, and that took out awards all around the world. What you have to understand is that every animal that comes to us is trauma or illness. We don't see pet puppies for vaccinations or a cat with a sore ear. These are all animals that have either been hit by cars, shot, poisoned, affected by bushfires or floods, attacked by domestic animals, attacked by feral animals. The chair of our board I handpicked. It's Dr. Ken Henry, who was Secretary to Federal Treasury for about 11 years, so he ran the country's economy. He was also chairman of the National Australia Bank. And he and his wife have been wildlife carers all their adult lives.
Through that as well.
So you've got the leading economist in this country who used to run the entire economy of this country, who's our chairman. I've given presentations where I've talked about not fearing failure. So I think if you don't fail in life, and I've certainly failed at things, if you don't fail in life, I think you haven't tried hard enough.
If you had a spot open up on this team, this dream team, what would you be looking for in a person to be out on this team? Welcome to Working with Wildlife, where I, your host, Jaden Lunt, speak to experts and enthusiasts in different fields of nature to find out how and why they do what they do. If you love wildlife, you likely want to be making a difference in the natural world or for wildlife. Well, today's guest is doing exactly that, but on the biggest scale possible. After earning his veterinary science degree from Murdoch University, he wasted no time, launching his own veterinary clinic, founding and co-founding multiple wildlife ventures, and being part of the team that created Matilda, the largest portable, fully functioning veterinary clinic in Australia, and possibly the world. He's also no stranger to politics, using his influence to turn ideas into action. Please welcome to the show, Dr. Stephen Van Mill. Thanks for coming on to today's show. This is really exciting. I'm out in the jungle at one of the most amazing raptor enclosures for rehabilitation that I've ever seen, if not the most amazing. We've just been going through, you showed me this, what's going on here. You've also showed me Matilda. First off, thanks for coming on.
Pleasure.
And can you tell me a little bit, what's Matilda, for those who don't know what's going on there?
So Matilda is a mobile wildlife hospital. It's the only licensed mobile veterinary hospital in Australia, but all Matilda sees is Australian native animals.
Yeah, so no like dogs, cats, none of that.
No dogs, cats, no Australian wildlife owned by people. So if you have a pet snake or a pet galah, we don't see it. We only see animals from the wild. Okay.
All right. Now, this is something that started off in 2020. It started off in, like it was created. This has just followed the bushfires that started out. You mentioned that it wasn't because of the bushfires, but you already had this idea in your mind. So where did this idea come from?
Well, I'm a general practice vet. I still do 1 day a week seeing dogs and cats in Lennox Head. And my colleague Evan and I used to see a lot of wildlife at that practice. So every single day around Australia, wildlife are taken to general veterinary practices. And usually they're seen at the end of the day because you've got paying customers with their dogs and cats and their exotic animals that take priority. Yeah. And the wildlife don't get a great deal. So Evan and I, over a couple of beers one night, decided we wanted to create a dedicated wildlife hospital for the northern rivers of New South Wales. Right. This is a 20,000 square kilometre region, which is incredibly biodiverse. There's a huge range of animal species in the northern rivers of New South Wales. So, yeah, there was a screaming need for a dedicated wildlife hospital. Then we had to figure out, how we're going to do it.
Okay, that's next.
Yeah, so look, we looked at various options. Obviously, purchasing land up here is not cheap. Going through the planning and DA process for bricks and mortar hospital takes time and obviously ultimately a lot of money. Yes. So we wanted a quick solution and we landed on the idea of something that was mobile, that didn't require DA and could be anywhere in the country.
Yeah, which is the first in Australia.
First and only in Australia and probably the world.
Likely the world as well, yeah, which is pretty amazing. So so you started out with you needed something. You saw a need and you wanted to fill that. How long you've been a vet for a long time? You've covered a lot of different careers. You've had quite a diverse career experience life. So what are you doing at the moment? Like you say you're 1 day a week practitioner, like a general vet practitioner, but what else are you doing outside of that?
Oh, well, look, running Wildlife Recovery Australia is our parent organisation, Byron Bay Wildlife Hospital and the Byron Bay Raptor recovery centre where we are right now sit within that. So really, it's fundraising is a huge part of my time, and future proofing.
Okay.
Planning ahead, which is a constant process.
What does future proofing look like for like what you're focused on?
Well, look, we're looking at creating other wildlife hospitals throughout Australia under the Wildlife Recovery Australia banner. We've created a number of partnerships throughout Australia with organisations like Wildlife Victoria and Port Stephens Koala Hospital, and we're working with Australian Wildlife Conservancy right now. We have a partnership with Southern Cross University.
Okay.
So just last month we started a new veterinary faculty in Australia. So it's now the 8th veterinary faculty in Australia, and this course will have a focus on wildlife, of course.
Really? So has there been other wildlife-focused veterinary faculties, yes, but this is the only one?
No, this will be the only one.
It's the only one? Okay.
The seven existing faculties in Australia have very, very little or no wildlife component at all.
Amazing. Wow. Okay. So this is a pretty big deal.
Yeah. So when I say future proofing, it's about creating the next generation. In our hospital, we have vet students and vets from all around Australia and in fact all around the world on placement the whole time. We're booked out to 2027 right now with placements.
That's a couple of years ahead. Yeah. We're 2025 now.
So, Australian wildlife capture the world's imagination. I think we take for granted the extraordinary array of wildlife we have.
In Australia.
My hero, Sir David Attenborough, said, when he was asked the question, what's the most amazing animal you've ever come across? He said the platypus.
I hear that he's quite fascinated with the platypus. Have you been in contact with them at all?
Yes, I have, and hanging in pride of place in my office is a handwritten letter from Sir David Attenborough.
Oh, that must mean a lot, especially for someone that you looked up to as well. For something like that's amazing. With all these these things that you're looking forward to, like that's kind of like future proofing the wildlife side of things. You've been what career in the many careers you've had. What have you done? Like, what's been your titles? Like, presently, you're a vet, but like more than a vet. There's a lot that goes into you. So
basically, I'm a vet. When I was 5, I actually still recall telling my parents I was going to be a vet when I grew up. I grew up in Perth in Western Australia. At that stage, there was no veterinary faculty, but thankfully, just as I finished senior school, Murdoch University started, so I was lucky enough to get a place at Murdoch and graduated 5 years later with 2 degrees and started practicing veterinary science straight away.
Okay, right. So you're veterinary science. So you start off in the vet world. What else have you? So you basically you've had is what you're saying, but you've done so much more. So what is your career experience look like?
Well, as soon as I finished university in Perth, I moved to Sydney and started general practice there. So I ended up with 3 veterinary hospitals in Sydney. And during the build of those, which was in pretty quick succession, I was approached by the Nine Network to become the resident vet on the Today Show.
Well, and that would have been quite exciting. I saw that. That's pretty like. Did you always think that you wanted to be on TV? Or
Never crossed my mind.
Never crossed your mind.
Never crossed my mind. So I was just asked to go on, did a segment, and then they said, "Well, would you like a weekly gig?" So for 14 years, I did weekly stories with the Today Show. Some were live in the studio, some were live crosses. Some we'd go to, a state or territory and package up some stories. So I got to do a lot of travel with it. I got to choose all the stories. And
you got some choice in that?
I had full editorial control over the stories.
Wow.
And I got to meet a lot of amazing people and visit a lot of amazing locations.
So in the this, what did it feel like? I guess is what I'd like to know. Like when you first got that, there's kind of 2 parts to that. Is that the first segment that you did? What was that like? How did that kind of work out? What was that opportunity? How did that come about? And then like when you were offered that opportunity, was there much tension in being like, I'm not sure? Were you like, this is where I want to be?
Oh, look, it just came naturally. I didn't think about it. Live television can be confronting because it is live, but it didn't seem to bother me. And
duck to water kind of thing.
Just seemed to fit. And obviously it worked for a long time. So while I was at the Today Show, as I mentioned, I got to go to some amazing locations and zoos and sanctuaries all around Australia. And one of them in particular, Mogo Zoo on the south coast of New South Wales,
Mogo Zoo,
approached me one day and said, we've got an opportunity to get some white lions. What do you reckon? I said, Sounds great to me.
Sounds good.
So there were 3 white lion cubs born at Johannesburg Zoo. And so I spoke to the Nine Network and said, look, there's an opportunity to do a really, sexy international story here. What do you think? And they jumped all over it. So, we ended up going over to Africa with 60 Minutes.
Okay, over to Africa.
We shot a feature story with 60 Minutes. And at the same time, I'd got a commission from Animal Planet to do a full-length documentary about white lions. So we had an Animal Planet crew of our choosing and then the 60 Minutes crew. 60 Minutes story did really well. And then the Animal Planet story came out about a year later.
Out of that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I had to learn how to make a film.
Okay.
Again, I had no training in television. I've had no training in film, but
nothing before then.
No.
And so the opportunity was kind of someone reached out to you like, hey,
Yep.
this is something. Then you reached out to the Nine News Network.
Yep.
And then was like, hey, this could be really, really cool.
yeah, and they loved it. So
they're all on board.
That was a feature story on Nine News. It was a feature story in A Current Affair and a feature story in 60 Minutes.
Wow, that's
and
a
then,
couple
and
different
then obviously
places.
an Animal Planet feature film. So yeah.
Okay. So you had to learn how to be a videographer, a filmmaker.
No. I had to learn how to be the producer.
Okay,
So I
so
didn't
how
do
to
any
run it.
filming. I had film crews and soundies.
Yeah.
I had to work out how to package the whole thing up. Organise the interviews, get all the filming locations done, do all the what a producer does. So I just learned how to be a producer.
Okay, and was that a steep learning curve? Like, was it again? Did you feel like you understood what you're kind of looking for, creating stories in your mind, like how you wanted to?
Well,
run
I'd had
it?
many years at the Today Show, so I was pretty used to creating a 5-minute story.
Okay.
So I thought a 1-hour story was just doing 12 5-minute stories.
Okay.
So that was pretty naive, but fundamentally the principles are the same.
It's the same. And so, so you said that again, like that was like in the first part when you were offered that opportunity to go into like the Today Show, like to have that continuous segment. You said it felt quite natural. Did they reached out to you afterwards and said, "Hey, I love your work." Like, what was it about that? Like, how you presented yourself, like your skills and who you are. Like, how did what kind of drew them towards you as being the guy for the job?
I don't know. I mean, I guess I've got some knowledge, and I guess I was okay in front of the camera,
Yeah.
and wasn't fazed by live television. So yeah, that was a 14-year gig that started off as just one appearance. So
And in 14 years, you've seen a lot of different things, a lot of different places. What was maybe an impactful moment for you as you looking at wildlife, you're working with wildlife? What was an impactful moment in that kind of view, but also what was a big thing that you learnt whilst being on TV for 14 years?
I learnt that Australian wildlife in particular, but wildlife in general, are in trouble. I did a lot of stories around Australia, a lot of zoos, a lot of sanctuaries, and saw a lot of and wildlife hospitals. Saw a lot of challenges. So that sat with me for a long time, and really probably was the genesis of the idea to create Matilda the dedicated wildlife hospital here.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then what was like that was like the wildlife thing, and then what was like learning about yourself? Like 14 years, you're working with a lot of different people, you're working in a lot of different environments, different crews, different setups.
Yep.
Was there much learning for you as a person in that, or was it just like a work thing? Do you kind of see what I'm asking is?
Well, look, I chose stories that would challenge me.
Yeah.
And
So it wasn't easy,
I had to learn. So I saw my role on television as a constant learning process for myself, but an education process for the viewing audience. So I was helping inform them of things that they probably didn't know. Whether it was about their domestic animals or whether it's about our Australian wildlife or livestock. I covered a huge range of stories over 14 years.
Yeah, wow. And so I guess, communication then would have to be a pretty, like, to try and explain, like you said, new things or teaching people that might not know much, but trying to bring value to like a broad audience, but also being specific.
Yeah.
Well, did you have when you were speaking, did you have a script, or were you freely speaking in both instances?
I don't like scripts.
You don't like scripts, you're free. I like that. That's good.
It was always, I just had to absorb the knowledge and then present it in a way that a general audience, including children, would understand. So, there could be a complex disease issue, say, in the veterinary world. The outbreak of calicivirus in rabbits when that happened, and trying to explain that to rabbit pet owners, around Australia, what the ramifications of
what that
are.
actually looks like.
Yeah, so I spent a lot of time doing research, and then worked hard on making sure that what I presented to the audience was something that they could grasp and understand.
With whilst you were presenting this, did you have like a thought process? Maybe is what kind of wondering, like a kind of a thought flow that you went through when just thinking through how you're going to speak about what you're speaking about.
Well, I would just imagine that I was sitting in a lounge room somewhere watching me on television.
Yeah.
And, trying to imagine what that person might be interested in hearing and trying to make the stories interesting and accessible. So, yeah. Speak to your audience.
Speaking, yeah. So you had an audience member in mind, and then you spoke to that person. Awesome. So you've got a lot of different titles, a lot of different experiences that you've had. Presently working as a vet one day a week practitioner, and then generally speaking, you're then also trying to get funding for your different endeavors. Yep. Obviously funding is a big part of that. You're telling us before about how you got some of the funding behind Matilda.
Yes.
Could you tell us a little bit about that as well?
So in designing the mobile wildlife hospital, my colleague Evan Kosak and I worked with a local architect. So Matilda was just designed from scratch and built from scratch, just on the Gold Coast. So really, there was a lot of thought that went into how do you compact an entire hospital in the back of a semi-trailer.
That's a good question.
Yep. So, we worked hard on that, as we did on the design of this Raptor Centre behind us. You've been inside Matilda, you've seen how it works.
Amazing space.
And remarkably, to run a hospital out of the back of a truck for 4.5 years so far. And now we've seen about 10,000 patients 7 days a week. It's worked.
Big high success rate as well from what you said. You said 40% is success rate is what we're looking at so far.
What you have to understand is that every animal that comes to us is trauma or illness. We don't see pet puppies for vaccinations or a cat with a sore ear. These are all animals that have either been hit by cars, shot, poisoned, affected by bushfires or floods. Numerous attacked by domestic animals, attacked by feral animals.
Yeah.
So every animal that comes in is trauma and illness. And we're very proud of the fact that about 40% of the animals that we see, we get back into care and back into the wild. So that's a huge
high number.
Success rate.
What does that look like in comparison? Like the general, you said it's huge, 40% maybe. At first, it might not seem like a lot, but you said there was a different number that usually is what can be compared to that.
Of the thousands of animals that present to general veterinary practices throughout Australia every year, I would estimate that it would be in the low percentages of 3 or 4%, which animals might make it.
Which then makes that 40% look so much bigger.
Well, on 10,000 animals, that means we've saved 4,000 Australian native animals. Yeah.
And that's an amazing effort, especially for something. What do you think is the success of that? Is it team? Is it the movability of this veterinary practice? What do you think?
Well, the success of that is the skilled team. So, we've got quite a number of dedicated wildlife veterinarians on our team and dedicated wildlife veterinary nurses. We have a big volunteer base. We have an intern now. We have vet students and vets from all around the world and all around Australia visiting us. So it's really a combination of all that intellectual property and training and experience and knowledge that affords us such a high success rate.
Can I ask what goes into building a good team? And this is the Working for Wildlife, like a podcast. So people they want to learn how to and figure out how to work with wildlife. I would say it's a privilege for someone to be able to work in a state of the art facility and be able to be part of a great team. What goes into the person or the people that are part of your team, and what makes them the people that are part of the team?
Well, by definition, if you're, a veterinarian or a veterinary nurse, you're an empath by nature. You care, and you care about those animals, and you care about the outcomes, and that can be challenging. So, HR is a big part of our organisation now. The veterinary profession has a very high mental health attrition rate. and has the highest suicide rate of any occupation.
Which is full on.
It's pretty scary. So it's 4 times the average population, the suicide rate in the veterinary profession. We're also very under-resourced in Australia, so it's estimated we're about 1,500 vets short in this country.
Okay.
And yet we have the highest domestic pet ownership per capita of any country in the world.
Really?
And that went through the roof during COVID. So people sitting locked in their homes, getting lonely, and went out and got a kitten or a puppy. So we do have a very, very high pet ownership.
High workload.
Yep. So vets are under constant pressure. In answer to your question, what keeps a good team? Well, good leadership and listening to people. We have regular meetings, team meetings. We have monthly board meetings. We deal with problems on the spot. We don't let things fester. So we've got a good team from the board through to my role as the founder and the CEO, through to the head of our veterinary services, through to the head of our marketing and comms, through to our practice manager. So it takes a village to build a product. So,
understood. I'm hearing what you're saying. So it's the team as a whole that makes it so good. If you had a spot open up on this team, this dream team maybe, that works together so well, great leadership, I agree, like it's an very important thing. If someone was there's open space on your team, what would you be looking for in a person to be out on this team?
Well, anyone that joins Wildlife Recovery Australia has to be a team player. You've got to work with other people. Even though our focus is on wildlife, you can't do that in isolation.
Now, talking about wildlife, you have a massive ant on your cuff right there.
That's all right.
Yeah, and a jumper. Might have to add as well, loving this wildlife. We've got mozzies flying everywhere to people who can't see us. Beautiful place.
Right.
But
only the females bite, so you can blame them.
I'm feeling they love me. But as you were saying.
So I think, you've got to find people that can work with other people.
Okay.
And particularly,
That's a big thing.
Matilda is a semi-trailer. So it is a fairly confined space, and everyone needs to know their place, their role, and get on with their job. Okay. And when there are concerns,
know the role.
Know that they're listened to.
Yeah.
And we do listen. We have counselling services on tap for people if they need it.
Okay.
We are very respectful of our people as we are of the wildlife that we treat.
Okay. So what you're saying, if I could summarise here, what you're saying is that being able to communicate well with the team and with the people you're working with, understand like the purpose of what you're doing there, so you don't bleed out into other areas, so you can do that role well, so the team can work well, and then also having the skills to an extent, Is there a minimal base level of skill, or is this is this a space that you are willing to bring people in that don't necessarily have the skill, but they have the character that allows them to grow the skill, or what does that look like? If you know what I'm saying?
We require a basic skill level.
Yep.
So a general practice vet that's never seen wildlife would struggle to get a job with us.
Yep.
Putting an intern in, so this is a newly graduated vet who's been a year in general practice, but she'd done a lot of wildlife work, and we created this intern position in partnership with Southern Cross University, and that'll be annual. So every year there'll be a new young vet coming through that will learn on the job with us. We've got a very, very experienced senior team, and we're helping create the next generation of future-proofing, as I said earlier.
I've heard that one of the things is part of what you want to do is also inspire people to do something. What is it? What does inspiring look like to you?
Well, I think to answer that, we have to recognise that the main reason, and almost the only reason that wildlife present to us, is because of human-related problems. So, motor vehicle strike is the most common reason an animal comes to our wildlife hospital. Yep. Attacks by domestic animals are very high. Attacks by feral animals are very high. Shootings and poisonings and barbed wire fences and things like that. So I see part of our role, a big part of our role is education. It's all well and good to tell the story of, a wedge-tailed eagle that came here and got released, but you've got to tell the backstory. Why did it end up here? I just heard recently that, a whole bunch of wedge-tailed eagles were shot in Victoria.
Really?
And farmers still do that.
Still.
So, trying to educate the general public on the importance of wildlife and wildlife matter. And even right now, as we go into a federal election, we've partnered with Wildlife Victoria and launched a campaign called I Vote for Wildlife. And we have written to and are writing to all the relevant ministers throughout Australia to say that wildlife count, wildlife matter.
Yeah.
The number one reason for tourists coming to Australia is to see wildlife.
Number one.
The number one reason.
Okay.
And it's no mistake that the logo for Qantas Airlines is the flying kangaroo. Most of our sporting teams are named after wildlife. The Kangaroos are the rugby league team, the Wallabies, it's a rugby union team. So,
so wildlife is a big draw.
We are very happy to promote our wildlife when it suits us, but they don't get the recognition or the support that they actually deserve. And on that, in New South Wales, wildlife are the property of the Crown. So it means that state government legally own wildlife.
Okay.
There's also a law in this state that if you as a member of the public find injured wildlife, you must attend to it. And there's also a law in this state that as a veterinarian, we must treat it. But there's no provision for any compensation for that.
Really?
So while the owners of
confusing.
wildlife stipulate laws that say that you've got to treat the animal, there's actually no recompense for that.
No backing for that.
So, part of what we're doing is looking to change policy at a federal and state and territory level so that wildlife get recognised.
It's a big conversation.
It's a big conversation, but the chair of our board I handpicked, it's Dr. Ken Henry, who was Secretary to Federal Treasury for about 11 years. So he ran the country's economy. He was also chairman of the National Australia Bank. And he and his wife have been wildlife carers all their adult lives.
Through that as well.
So you've got the leading economist in this country who used to run the entire economy of this country, who's our chairman.
Yeah.
And he knows all the prime ministers from Paul Keating, Bob Hawke, all the way through to right now, and most of the senior ministers. So, we're using people like Ken Henry to advocate for policy change so that wildlife get recognised and the wildlife hospitals like ours don't have to rely 100% on the general public and philanthropy to keep our doors open.
Yeah. And what's it looking like? Is it looking confident so far with that?
Well, we're going into a federal election. We did a media release a few weeks ago launching the I Vote for Wildlife campaign. The next day, the Greens Senator Sarah Hanson-Young came up and she announced the Greens would be seeking $20 million of funding for wildlife nationally going into the federal election. That would really rely on a Labor minority government being in place and the Greens and the Teals and the Independents holding the balance of power. Now, I need to explain that when I started this whole wildlife hospital project, I didn't intend to get involved in politics.
No.
I didn't intend to get involved in fundraising as heavily as I am. But it is what it is.
But the time that you've been in, you've realised that that's a pretty important part of it, like something behind the scenes.
It's a very, very important part of it.
Okay.
The status of wildlife in this country is deplorable. We have the highest mammal extinction rate of any country in the world. So 20% of the wildlife that were here, or the mammals that were here when white man arrived in the late 1700s, don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
So into extinction forever. And even under our watch in the last 2 years, koalas in New South Wales and Queensland have gone on the threatened species list.
Yes.
Now that's just not good enough.
It's just not cool.
That's not good enough.
Yeah.
So, where at the receiving end, the hospital gets all these damaged animals. I don't want to keep doing that. I hate it when people ask, how's the hospital? I have to say it's busy because it is busy every single day. I don't like that. I'd love to say one day, we didn't see any patients.
Didn't do much today, actually.
We didn't see any patients, but that's just not going to happen in the short term.
This is a large part of your life now. You said earlier that at 5 years old, you're able to remember that from 5 years old that you told your parents that you wanted to become a vet, that you will become a vet. There's been a couple of years in between that. What are some moments of decision through that? First, maybe a quick walkthrough of what kind of that's looked like for you. And then I'd like to hear for yourself, looking back now, a moment that at that time you didn't see much coming from it. It didn't seem like a big deal, or it was a big deal, but you didn't see where it was leading you to. So quick run through from 5 years old to now. A lot of life, a lot of experience, and then I guess a turning point or a moment that stands out in your mind about through your trajectory of life?
Yeah, well, I feel very privileged that, I was able to get into vet school and graduate as a vet, and that's been the common thread throughout my whole life. And, I've had a long period in media, virtually most of my adult life, actually. And, I really care about wildlife globally, but now mostly Australia. And I think that, where I've landed now in my early 60s is a good place. I've been able to combine my skills as a veterinarian with the skills that I picked up, as a television presenter and a producer of documentaries and films, and a conservationist.
Right.
And so, with the Wildlife Hospital project, all the things that have spun off that have been as a consequence of the other skills and experiences I've had throughout my career.
That you've had along the way.
And I've often described my life as a series of accidents. That yes, when I was 5, I decided I want to be a vet, and yes, I did become a vet. And then, getting involved with television was just an accident. Then, getting into the documentary world was another nice accident. And then now creating this Wildlife Hospital project and all the spin-offs of that. It was literally, a brain fart over a couple of beers one night. So, it's
brilliant start.
I think there's a level of fate that determines where you land in life.
Yeah.
And I think you've just got to follow your instincts. So I've given presentations where I've talked about not fearing failure. So I think if you don't fail in life, and I've certainly failed at things, if you don't fail in life, I think you haven't tried hard enough. I think you've stayed in your comfort zone, you haven't taken enough risk. Yeah. And, the idea to build a wildlife hospital was literally just an idea. The fact that we pulled it off and the fact that it's just expanded and
so
is
well
now
too.
globally recognised is really rewarding.
It's amazing.
It's rewarding.
Yeah. You said happy accidents. Is there? It sounds like it's really has worked out. A lot of things have worked out for you. I think generally in the younger years, there's this trying to figure out like what do you want to do in life. You said follow your instincts as one of that. Was part of that. Did you wanted to be a vet like the entire young adult years, or did you have any different ideas, or you were pretty set on this veterinary trajectory?
No, very, very set on it. I mean, I've always loved animals. My father was an accountant. Okay. And I was never, ever going to be an accountant. No. I do have to deal with a lot of numbers and finances now, but
funny that.
That's not my strong spot. We pay people to look after that for us. Yeah. No, look, I was always going to be doing something in the animal world, and I just didn't know what that would look like, 10, 20, 30, 40 years after I finally graduated as a veterinarian.
How old were you when you graduated?
I was only 22.
22.
So I started university at 17 and came out with 2 degrees at 22 years of age.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was, looking back on it, I don't know quite how I did it. But I think when you're young and you're just full of confidence, you just committed. You just get on with it. Yeah, so,
and you did. And with those, you said your father was an accountant, so not very much wildlife. Like, what are you able to even think about or figure out like why that was for you, like at 5 years old? Because you have to know what a vet is at 5 years old. Was there something that you watched on TV? Was it a family member or friends? Like, do you know where that kind of came from?
No, I don't know where it came from. I just grew up loving animals. We always had a pet dog. We never had cats. My father didn't like cats, but and I always had respect for wildlife, and I was always engrossed with books on African animals and Australian animals and so on. My early heroes were people like James Herriot, who was a fictional character but was a real vet, Gerald Durrell, who travelled the world collecting animals, Harry Butler, who was a WA ecologist, and of course Sir David Attenborough. So growing up, watching Sir David Attenborough and Harry Butler and, all creatures great and small, I just felt that, that's my space. Yeah, okay. And did your parents very supportive of while you were going through this? Was there much pushback thinking, no, you have to be an accountant, or they were pretty supportive? No. My parents were very supportive of my choice to become a veterinarian. Awesome. Earlier on, there was no veterinary school in Perth when I was in secondary school. And I was looking to go to South Africa and study there. Okay. The only thing that was against it was the whole course was taught in Afrikaans, and So I wasn't quite prepared to learn a
the
new
whole
language.
Wow.
To learn a technical course like veterinary science. Thankfully, Murdoch University was invented.
Yes.
And I was one of the early intakes into Murdoch University.
Okay.
So it all kind of fell into place.
Yeah, really well. And with Murdoch University, for those who haven't heard of, what made that so important for you? Instead of going to Africa, a completely different country, you were considering learning a completely different language. What made Murdoch University so pinnacle?
Well, it had a vet school, and it was in my hometown. So
next door.
I could still live at home and do part-time work to pay for my petrol and beer and go to uni every day. So,
as well.
So it was just serendipitous that Murdoch started. When I was ready to join a vet school.
Is there any other universities that have started that are similar to Murdoch now, or is that still pretty much the only one?
No, there's up until very recently there's 7 veterinary faculties in Australia.
Yep.
The main 4 are Murdoch University, Sydney University, University of Queensland, and Melbourne Uni.
Yep.
Then James Sturt and Charles Sturt and James Cook.
Okay.
Charles Sturt and James Cook
Yep.
have veterinary faculties, and we've partnered. Wildlife Recovery Australia has partnered with Southern Cross University, which is based in Lismore here in the Northern Rivers, and we've just started last month a vet tech course with about 80 students intake. And
just last month.
Just last month,
Yep.
and next year this time we start the vet med course.
Okay.
And these are going to be hand-picked people, and there's going to be a big focus on wildlife in that curriculum. Which will be a very big part of course.
Yeah, and is this something are you part of in that space and supporting that as well?
Yep.
So did you think when you were after maybe even just mid-30s, like you've finished your veterinary studies, you've then assumed a little bit after you finish your studies, you then started 3 vet clinics you had said. Did you? Was education ever in the view? Did you see yourself being helping out in the education space? And do you kind of see this as a way of giving what you couldn't have when you were younger? Is there anything in that about?
Well, as a younger vet, I was more interested in gaining knowledge and running successful practices and obviously paying the bills and making an income.
Important stuff.
We always had vet students involved with my veterinary practices in Sydney. We had live-in students. I used to employ them on the weekends to work so they gained experience, which I did as a vet student myself. So education sort of always sat on the back burner. It's become more relevant in my later years because, I now have more knowledge and experience and you do have to give back. And creating a wildlife hospital is one way of giving back. It costs $2 million a year to run that hospital now. We provide all our services 7 days a week completely free of charge. We pay for all the medications that we give away. We pay for all the pathology that we do and don't charge for. So, we're giving back to the wildlife community. We're supporting wildlife carers and care groups throughout the region and beyond. And we're very much educating the public and obviously future vets and vet nurses and people working in that wildlife space. So education and training across the whole strata has become a very big focus of what we do now.
Yeah, and for yourself personally as well.
Well, we never stop learning. The day you stop learning is the day you die.
Yeah, honest. You said in that as well. You said you have to give back. Like it's like a must. What is it that I guess that kind of that thinking behind that for someone who doesn't think they have to give back? Like why should someone give back?
I think to be a part of a community, to be a part of society, you need to give back. My 12-year-old daughter is in Nippers now. Surf Life Saving Australia is the biggest volunteer organisation in Australia. And, I watch all the dads and mums turn up and become age managers or, do surf patrol or cook the barbecue on the Sundays. That's one way of giving back. I think with our wildlife, when you have governments that don't support them or care for them at all, it's behoving on us to support them. And, through my career, I was the foundation director and president of Assistance Dogs for Independence. So that was a startup. And, we trained and still train, I'm not involved with it anymore, dogs to help people with physical disabilities.
Right.
So guide dogs has been around for a long time.
Right,
But
yes.
up until Assistance Dogs Australia started, there were no support dogs for
Right.
people in wheelchairs, for instance,
Right.
or people with severe epilepsy or severe autism.
And you're part of that foundational team.
I was the foundation director and president of that for quite a number of years.
Yeah, amazing.
I was also patron of Zoo Peru, so we were supporting animals in the Amazon in South America.
Is that kind of space with the orangutans? I see
No,
you've done
that's
some work with
separate.
that.
So
That's
the
separate?
orangutans, I co-founded Orangutan Foundation International Australia, and that followed on from doing a documentary called The Last Trimate, which
So
featured.
that was after the film was first, and then the orangutan. Okay, that was after. Okay.
So yeah, having done this this feature documentary about this amazing lady called Birute Gildekas, who in 1971 was appointed by the anthropologist Louis Leakey to study orangutans in Borneo. He'd appointed Jane Goodall to study chimpanzees in Africa,
Right.
and he appointed Diane Fossey to research gorillas in Africa. Diane Fossey, unfortunately, was murdered early in her time there.
Yeah.
But Birute Gildekas has been there now for 54 years and is still there.
Still a fair while.
Jane Goodall is in her mid-90s now and is
Yeah.
still travelling the world.
Still kicking on.
Kicking on.
Yeah.
So we were fortunate enough to do a feature film about Birute Gildekas and the orangutans of Borneo and her work there. It's the longest continuous study of any animal species by a human ever, and it will never be broken.
Really?
And so that film was called The Last Trimate, and Mel Gibson narrated that for us, and that took out awards all around the world.
Yes.
And we even pipped Sir David Attenborough in one of those awards.
Yeah. Nice. That would have been really good.
That was a cool moment.
That would have been an awesome moment.
That was a cool moment.
That was wow. And so, do you think you're going to be doing any more filming, like in the years ahead? Any thoughts in your head on that?
Oh, look, my knowledge of media that I've collected over many years, I know how important media is to promote your cause, to attract funding and to educate. So we use mainstream media, print, radio, television, and social media extensively. We've created our own television series called Wildlife Rescue Australia around the work that we do at the Byron Bay Wildlife Hospital.
Yeah.
Has sold globally, so National Geographic Wild in the USA bought it
Awesome.
recently. So yeah, we'll continue to create content. We'd like to make a second series of Wildlife Rescue Australia.
Yeah.
Particularly now we've got so many more things happening.
Yeah.
And we're working with so many other organisations.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key to the future is collaboration. There's a lot of organisations out there looking after wildlife. There's some big global ones like WWF, and there's smaller ones like us that are Australian based. But to work with organisations at all levels, provided they're like-minded in their ethos and their approach, is key to the future, in my view.
In your view, so moving forwards, what does your work for you moving forwards look like?
Well, look, there's demand and need for wildlife hospitals like ours all throughout Australia. So we're sort of really starting to think nationally. I just had a call a couple of weeks ago from Perth Zoo. They would like a mobile hospital over there.
Awesome.
We've had people from Southwest WA. We had a Raptor Centre from Margaret River in WA, and we gave them a virtual tour, and we've sent them all the plans and the costings of this. They want to build something like this.
They're feeling pretty good about it?
Over there. Yeah. So, I think now we've learnt a lot in 4.5 years. We've made some mistakes. We've done some things right, thankfully. So now it's a case of sharing that IP and meeting the need and demand that is a national one.
Okay, and so you're going to be continuing kind of in this searching for funding, helping to build the awareness of wildlife in Australia and I guess the world as well to an extent.
Well, yeah, I see that as my role now. I can't think of anything else I could do, actually. So, it's kind of nice to be stuck with that.
Yeah, that's really cool.
But, if it was just focusing on a single wildlife hospital in Byron Bay, I'd probably move on. But because this project has grown so quickly and extensively, it creates huge opportunity. So So, we're working with lots of different organisations to realise the goal of saving Australian wildlife.
It's pretty important. Yeah, that's all. That's pretty cool. It's nice, as you said, to be in a place where you want to be.
Yes.
And then you can see yourself doing this until the day you die.
Yeah.
Really is kind of the approach is. That's awesome. I understand that time is short as well with us, but I would like to jump into the game overrated, underrated. Yes. If you're cool with that,
Sure.
And then we'll land this bird. So overrated, underrated. The idea that every species matters equally.
I think that's probably an overrated statement.
Mm-hmm.
I think humans place way too much importance on us. I don't rate humans any more important than I rate a platypus or a red-bellied black snake.
Okay.
We are just an animal species on this planet. The problem is there's too many of us, and the bigger problem is that we've caused a lot of destruction.
A lot of damage.
So I've seen it firsthand in the Amazon. I've seen it firsthand in Borneo. I see it every day here in Australia. We're tearing down habitat. We're destroying our ecosystems. We're destroying our wildlife nationally and globally. And that's because we don't value other animal species as highly as we value ourselves.
Yeah, sure. They don't value enough. Yeah, okay. And that's part of what you're doing with the filming. Is that part of kind of bringing to light these struggles that the wildlife are facing? Is that part of the reason why you're creating these films? Well,
the documentaries I've made over the years, and the television series we've made, the constant social media and mainstream media that we do, is all about highlighting the problems that we're doing to our planet, and hopefully providing some solutions. There's smarter ways to do things than the way we're doing them.
Smarter ways.
We're figuring it out. We're watching a crazy world now with a dictator in the United States is. It simply doesn't care about this planet. And that knocks onto us, unfortunately.
Onto Australia as well.
Yeah, but we've got to take responsibility. As I mentioned earlier, we are responsible for the highest mammal extinction rate of any country in the world.
Yeah.
We did that.
Yeah.
So, we've got to stop that nonsense, stop that rubbish, stop tearing down our forests, and value our wildlife.
Acknowledging there's challenges from outside sources, but then also taking responsibility for what we can.
We must.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
There's no point just blaming the person next door, We're all responsible.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Second question, overrated, underrated, conservation without community input.
Well, conservation absolutely requires community input. It's impossible for conservation to occur unless the bulk of the community is engaged. We've seen so many instances where big mining proposals have gone ahead simply because of the money involved and, political decisions being made influenced by economy rather than, the value of our ecosystems. Our chair, Dr. Ken Henry, is doing a presentation in Sydney with us on the 4th of June talking about the economics of wildlife. And they have a significant value. Our forests, our ecosystems have a significant value. And, unless the entire community at large is engaged with that and understands that and respects that and acts on that, then we're doomed. And I understand the younger generation. I think there's a lot of despair there. We've got a cost of living crisis. We've got a home crisis. We're destroying our planet. There's climate change happening. There's fire events and flood events happening all around the world simultaneously. We can't ignore that. And I'd like to try my best to leave the world a slightly better place than
what you found it in.
Than I found it in.
Yeah.
And my generation's certainly responsible for most of the damage that's been done. So we've got to take account for that and we've got to act on that.
Yeah. Yeah, underrated then, very clearly. Overrated, underrated. Steve, filming staged interactions for the sake of narrative.
Well, that is overrated. We do a lot of filming with our wildlife, and the wildlife always comes first. So we've worked with a lot of film crews and international photographers, and everyone has to be respectful. And I learnt this in my years of television at the Today Show at Channel 9. think of the wildlife first or the animal first, and filming is secondary. It should be fly on the wall stuff.
Yeah.
So I would never ever, and Sir David Attenborough's my lead. I would never ever stage anything. I would never ever make someone do something again with an animal, for the sake of filming. If you capture, you capture. If you don't, you don't.
Yeah, awesome. Fourth, second last question. Overrated, underrated. The saying, it is not what you know, but who you know.
Look, it's probably an overrated statement.
Okay.
You do have to have a lot of knowledge, but knowing people certainly helps. And over my years in television, I got to travel a lot, meet a lot of amazing people. Still have contacts with most of them. Obviously, with what we've been doing over the last 5 years with Wildlife Recovery Australia, we have to engage with a lot of people, and we choose to. So there is a small element of who you know, but at the end of the day, you've got to have the knowledge and the trust and belief in the work you're doing to engage people.
Got to have something to back you up with.
You've got to, people see straight through fraud.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Fifth and final one, overrated, underrated, classical music.
Well, I love classical music. I mean, I don't know how you could overrate that. I love music generally.
Yes.
When we started the project, I'm a huge David Bowie fan, and as a consequence, a huge Iggy Pop fan. And Iggy Pop has a cockatoo son called Biggie Pop. And I came up with the crazy idea of asking Iggy to be the patron of Byron Bay Wildlife Hospital, and Russell Mills, my right-hand man, suggested, well, let's ask for Biggie to be the patron, and then, it's not a direct ask to Iggy. And within 24 hours, they said yes.
Within 24 hours?
So
wow.
We got Biggie and Iggy, and they've written songs for us. Iggy recorded an amazing video for us for our first Wild Aid music event.
Amazing.
In 2023, which was headlined by the Cruel Sea. And he shouted out the Australian government for not supporting wildlife.
Big call
so
out.
Even Iggy Pop, sitting in Florida, United States of America, the godfather of punk, has called out the Australian government.
Yeah, wow.
So, we love mixing rock and roll with wildlife.
Yeah.
Wild Aid 2025 is happening at the Blues Fest site on the 27th of September. The Hoodoo Gurus are headlining that. We just had confirmation this week that King Stingray and the Honey Sliders are going to be supporting them.
Oh, yeah.
So, it's going to be a great fun night where people are going to get out there and really enjoy themselves, and exactly the same time they're going to be benefiting wildlife.
Yeah. That's so cool. Amazing. Finally, cutting off and landing this bird of a conversation. It's been awesome speaking to you. If for people who want to reach out, people want to find the work that you're doing, help out maybe with Matilda, anything like that, where should they go?
Yeah, so look, we've got a website, byronbaywildlifehospital.org, and there's a whole bunch of information about us there and links to our other organisations. There's a donate page there. There's how to become a volunteer page. We're always looking for sponsorship. We're always looking for support. We're always looking for donations. We're always looking for bodies, people to help. So there's many, many ways that people can help out. And look, we get as excited about a school group coming along and having a gold coin day and giving us $100 as we do about a very wealthy person giving us hundreds of thousands of dollars. So, and we've got so many community groups in this region that have supported us and continue to support us as we support them. So, you asked earlier about community. Community is everything.
Big.
And unless we support each other and unless we all give back, we are doomed.
That's a good way to end it. Well, Steve, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it. It's been an amazing conversation.
Pleasure.
Appreciate it heaps. Thank you for watching or listening to today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to find more information on today's guest or more information on the podcast, you can find those details in the description below. Otherwise, I hope and look forward to seeing you in the next one.